The council chamber was built to inspire awe, its ceiling arched like a cathedral of light, its walls draped in shifting holographic starfields. But on this morning, every glittering surface felt like a silent accusation. Captain Mira Solas stood at the center dais, jaw tight, pulse steady only through force of will. Her holodeble projected a frozen image of a collapsing star system, planets dissolving into a spreading void. "Resume playback," she said. The hologram flickered to life. A blue sun dimmed to a sickly gray, its corona unraveling like threads pulled from fabric. Planets cracked, their crusts peeling outward as if flayed by invisible claws. The projection cut abruptly, ending on a static-filled scream. A tense silence followed. Some delegates stared with genuine horror. Others exchanged skeptical glances. Chancellor Varel Threx reclined in his throne-like seat, unimpressed. Mira braced herself. For the third time in 2 months, a system on the galactic rim has vanished. Not raided. Not quarantined. Erased. The probe's final data confirms. Threx lifted a hand. "Captain Solas, Earth has a history of dramatic interpretations." Her eyes flashed. The Vorkath are not a theory. They're an extragalactic hive species. They consume systems the way a fire consumes oxygen. "And yet," Threx said, voice smooth as polished stone, "your own scientists admit the observed anomalies could be natural phenomena." A ripple of soft voices filled the chamber. Mira leaned forward. "Natural phenomena don't emit coordinated biosignatures or pierce subspace with living vessels the size of moons." She tapped the control, projecting a new image, a grainy outline of an enormous organic structure drifting between stars. "This is the hive's forward biomass. It is moving toward council territory." Delegate Yester of the Varn blinked rapidly, his crystalline eyelids clicking. "If this threat is real, why have only humans detected it?" Mira kept her voice steady. "Because humans placed deep-range probes where the rest of you refused to. We saw the threat first. That doesn't make it imaginary." Threx leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "And what would Earth propose? Mobilizing fleets? Spreading panic? Humans are too eager to escalate." Mira exhaled slowly. Combat she understood. Politics required a different kind of endurance. "If we prepare now, we survive," she said. "If we wait for the Vorkath to arrive, we burn." Laughter, nervous, uncertain, echoed from a cluster of delegates. Mira shifted the projection again. This time, every display screen in the chamber lit up with the same feed, a planet's surface being overtaken by a creeping biological mesh, oceans boiling beneath it. "This was taken 12 hours ago," she said. "That world is gone." Threx's voice stayed level, but a faint tremor betrayed irritation. "A single incident without corroboration." "It is corroboration," Mira snapped. "You just don't want to accept it." A low murmur rose, some approving, others scandalized. Humans were not supposed to speak so bluntly in the council's august hall. Threx stood slowly, robes cascading in ceremonial layers. "Captain Solas, Earth may be new to the council, but you must learn restraint. Your warnings are noted. And disregarded." The dismissal hit like a slap. Mira felt her breath catch, not from surprise, she expected resistance, but from the sheer arrogance of it. "You're ignoring the extinction of multiple systems," Mira said. "This is not pride. This is suicide." Threx's eyes hardened. "This session is concluded." He struck his staff against the floor. The lights dimmed. Delegates rose, eager to escape the tension. Mira remained still, hands clenched. When the chamber emptied, someone touched her arm. It was Commander Leo Wren, a Zyran officer who occasionally worked with Terran intelligence. His silvered skin shimmered faintly. "He won't listen," Leo said quietly. "He'll have to," Mira replied. "Soon." Leo hesitated. "You think the timeline is that short?" "I think it's shorter." Back aboard her shuttle, Mira activated her encrypted channel. The hologram of Admiral Kaito Nakamura formed before her, stern-faced even in projection. "You didn't convince them," Kaito said. "They never intended to be convinced," she replied. "Threx is more afraid of losing political control than losing planets." Kaito sighed. "Then we proceed as discussed." "Mobilize the vanguard," Mira said. Quietly. "Label everything as readiness exercises." "Done." "But if we're wrong?" "We're not," she said. "And if we wait for permission, the Council dies." Kaito nodded. "We'll alert civilian shelters on Earth and Luna." "Do it," Mira said. "And tighten encryption. If Threx finds out we're preparing without authorization, he'll have a political tantrum. He'll accuse us of fomenting rebellion." Kaito raised a brow. "Wouldn't be the first time humanity terrified someone powerful." Mira allowed herself a brief smile before cutting the line. When the shuttle docked at the Council Spire's transit bay, alarms blared. Not shrill sirens, but deep, resonant tones, warnings reserved for existential emergencies. The corridor lights dimmed to crimson. Delegates and guards rushed past Mira, confusion etched across their features. Her wrist console pinged with priority access. She opened the link. A frightened council aide appeared. "Captain Solas, the border system of Erewhon has gone dark. Entirely. No transmissions. No energy signatures. Nothing." Mira's stomach sank. "Show me." The aide uploaded the stream. Mira stepped into a private holoroom as the feed expanded around her. Erewhon's star flickered like a candle in wind. A wave, dark, viscous, swept across the system. Ships trying to flee were caught mid-jump, their hulls dissolving into luminescent strands pulled toward the spreading mass. Then the feed cut. "Static." Mira whispered, "They've reached the rim." The door hissed open. Threx entered, his face paler than she'd ever seen. "You knew this was coming," he said quietly. She turned sharply. "I told you this was coming." A distant thunder vibrated through the station, an FTL distortion, too strong to be local traffic. Mira's console flashed a proximity alert. Something vast had entered Council space. Threx swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Mira stepped forward, her voice clear and controlled. "We prepare. And you give me full authority to coordinate defense." Threx hesitated. The station shook again. Louder. "Chancellor," Mira said, "if we don't act now, Irinder Prime is next." Another tremor rippled through the floor, this one unmistakably from outside, where something enormous distorted space. Threx closed his eyes. "Very well," he whispered. "Do what you must." Mira tapped her console. Her command codes unlocked. The chamber lights flickered, then dimmed to emergency red. Outside the viewport, a massive shadow appeared, an organic superstructure twisting into real space. Mira stared at it, pulse steady. "They're here," she said. And for the first time in decades, the Council finally listened. Space around Irinder Prime convulsed as the Vorkath arrived. What began as a faint shimmer beyond the planet's equatorial ring ignited into a violent distortion. Light bent inward, warping until a colossal organic mass tore through the void. It was not a ship in any conventional sense, more like a drifting continent of flesh, bone, and bioluminescent veins, its surface pulsating with a rhythm that echoed through the station's sensors. Alarms detonated throughout the Council citadel. Captain Mira Solas burst into the command center and took in the chaotic scene. Officers shouted over one another, screens flooded with red warnings, and Irinder's defense grid flickered uncertainly under the gravitational stress of the intrusion. "Status," Mira said, sliding into the central operations pit. Lieutenant Aaron, a reptilian tactician known for his calm, looked anything but calm. "Unknown vessel has breached orbit." Multiple smaller signatures detaching, landing pods or strike organisms. Mira zoomed in on the feed. Dozens of spined orbs separated from the hulking mass, each glowing with internal heat. They were steering toward the ring stations. "Raise orbital shields," Mira ordered. Trying, Aaron said. The intruder is interfering with the harmonics. Of course it is, Mira thought. The hive learned through every encounter. Even their arrival disrupted defenses. A new tremor rattled the station. The smaller pods struck the outer ring in a series of dull thuds that reverberated through the framework. Delegate Leo Wren rushed into the command center, eyes wide. Boarding organisms have penetrated Sector Beta. Security teams are falling back. We predicted this, Mira said. Seal sectors C through F, flood Beta with hard vacuum. The tech officers hesitated. Threx strode into the room, face pale but rigid. Do as she says. This is war. The chamber stilled. Even in crisis, the Chancellor's voice carried weight. Yes, Chancellor, the officers replied in unison. Within seconds, the sector's pressure dropped. A distant groan echoed through the structural supports. Mira imagined the alien organisms collapsing into shriveled husks, or more likely, rupturing into a cloud of spores that would regrow if containment failed. Nothing about the Vorkath stayed dead without certainty. Another alarm shrieked. This one bore a tone Mira dreaded. Unidentified vessel emerging from hyperspace, the comms officer said. Trajectory hostile. Mira braced herself. But instead of another hive structure, a sleek fleet of metallic ships flared into real space, sharp-angled, glowing with blue thrusters. Terran warships. The Vanguard fleet. On the display, Admiral Nakamura's flagship cut through space with the precision of a surgeon's blade. Mira exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Terran Fleet Broadcasting Emergency Intervention Code, comms reported. Permission to engage? Threx hesitated, torn between political instinct and survival. Mira said, grant it. Threx closed his eyes. Permission granted. The outer screens came alive with fire. Terran destroyers dove toward the organic mass, launching kinetic penetrators that detonated in bursts of white light. Chunks of alien flesh sprayed into orbit, drifting like torn banners. The council officers stared, stunned. No other species fought with such coordinated aggression. Mira used the moment. Patch me to the fleet. Admiral Nakamura appeared as a crisp hologram, armored and alert. We're hitting the pods first. Keep your station sealed. Understood, Mira said. We need a defensive perimeter. If the hive adapts, its second wave will be worse. We came prepared. The feed cut as the Admiral returned to battle. Mira gestured to the tactical table. Begin vector alignment. Support the Terran approach with long-range fire. Aaron nodded. Council batteries ready. Energy beams lanced outward, slicing smaller organisms before they reached the rings. Meanwhile, Terran ships weaved between tendrils, targeting the creature's sensory nodes. The Vorkath roared, not through sound, but through space itself. A psychic shock rippled outward, rattling hulls and knocking several officers to their knees. Mira clutched the console as a wave of nausea hit her. The hive mind was probing, searching for weaknesses, testing the defender's will. Threx gripped the edge of the table, sweat beading along his temples. What was that? The hive thinks, Mira said. It's learning our positions. Move all command staff to hardened shelters. I need full tactical control. Threx didn't argue. The psychic tremor had shaken him more deeply than he cared to admit. He stepped aside, his earlier arrogance stripped away. Mira pointed to the expanding hologram of the hive ship. See that cluster? The bright area near the dorsal ridge. That's its sensory core. If we blind it, the pods will lose coordination. Aaron sent the command to the fleet. Outside, Terran bombers streaked toward the glowing cluster. The hive retaliated, tendrils snapped outward, launching razor-edged projectiles. One Terran frigate took a direct hit, fracturing into molten debris. Mira forced her grief down. There would be time for mourning later. Direct all fire on the dorsal ridge, she said. Combined Council and Terran shots converged, carving deep wounds into the creature's surface. A shocking eruption followed, fluid, bright as molten gold, spilling into space. The hive convulsed, and the psychic pressure faltered. Good, Mira said. Push the advantage. But victory was premature. A new distortion opened beneath the hive. Another biomass surged through, smaller but faster, bristling with spines. Second wave incoming. Aaron shouted. Focus fire, Mira said. Don't let it reach the rings. Terran destroyers shifted formation. Their engines burned white-hot as they unleashed torpedoes at point-blank range. The second organism writhed under the onslaught, but momentum carried it dangerously close. One of Arinder's 3 shield pylons flickered, then exploded as the creature slammed into it. A shockwave rippled across the planet, visible from orbit. The ring's structural lights dimmed. Shield integrity compromised, the tech officer said. We've lost pylon delta. Mira gritted her teeth. Redirect power from non-essential sectors. Keep the barrier up. Aaron glanced at her. We can't hold for long. Then we don't, Mira said. We strike back. Her eyes locked onto a pulsing region deep inside the larger hive structure, an unusual concentration of nerve-like strands. Magnify section gamma 12. The image expanded, revealing a central synaptic conduit linking the swarm. There, Mira said. If we destroy that node, the swarm loses cohesion. Aaron studied the readout. Impossible to hit from outside. It's shielded under multiple biolayers. Then we don't hit it from outside. The officers looked at her. She continued, we board the hive ship. Threx, pale from the psychic assault, returned to the command area just in time to hear her proposal. You want to send people into that? Yes, Mira said. Because the swarm won't stop until every world looks like Erwin. And because this is the only way to end the assault before the third wave arrives. Threx swallowed hard. Who would lead such a mission? I will, Mira said. No one questioned her. A thunderous groan rolled through the station as the Vorkath shifted, preparing to unleash something larger, heavier, and far more lethal. Mira turned to Leo. Prepare a boarding unit, human marines and any allied specialists who volunteer. We move the moment the Terran fleet opens a breach. Leo nodded and sprinted out. Aaron glanced at her. This is as dangerous as it gets. I know. The hive ship loomed outside the viewport, an immense shadow blotting stars. Mira squared her shoulders. If the galaxy won't save itself, she said, then humanity will. The boarding craft shuddered as it pierced the outer membrane of the hive ship. Organic fibers slapped against the hull like ropes dragged by a rising tide. Lights flickered. A thin acidic mist streaked the window. Mira Solas stood at the front of the craft, helmet sealed, pulse steady. Behind her, a mixed strike team of Terran Marines and allied specialists checked gear in silence. The usual tension before battle existed, but there was something heavier now, a knowledge that stepping inside the Vorkath meant stepping into the belly of an entity older than their civilizations combined. 5 seconds, the pilot called. Prepare for breach. The craft wedged into a fleshy corridor and halted. The ramp hissed open. A wave of heat and moisture washed over them. The interior walls pulsed faintly, muscles tightening and relaxing like a sleeping giant. A sickening heartbeat echoed through the passage. Move, Mira said. Marines poured out, forming perimeter coverage. Alien specialists scanned the area with handheld sensory tools, their lights reflecting off thick bioluminescent veins. Leo Ren approached Mira, visor glowing. The hive knows we're here. Its metabolic rate just spiked. Then we find the synaptic node before it reorganizes, she said. Map? He projected the layout extrapolated from external scans. The hive's interior resembled a maze of tunnels, the nerve cluster deep in its central mass. We take this artery, Leo said, pointing. It leads straight to the core. They moved quickly, weapons raised. The floor felt alive beneath their boots, soft, yielding, and faintly warm. As they advanced, the shadows twisted. A sudden screech vibrated through the corridor. "Contact," a Marine shouted. Shapes peeled from the walls, lean, skeletal creatures with scythe-like arms and shimmering skin. Their movements were too fluid, too abrupt. Mira fired first. Her rifle's kinetic pulse blew a hole through the nearest creature, spraying iridescent fluid. The squad opened fire. The corridor lit with bursts of blue and white. Creatures dissolved as quickly as they emerged, collapsing into steaming heaps. When the last body hit the floor, the hive pulsed violently, as if angry. Leo scanned the remains. "These are evolved variants. The hive is adjusting to our weapons." "Then we move faster," Mira said. "Form tight cover. Keep advancing." They pressed deeper, the heat rising. The walls became more elaborate, veins thickening, nerves exposed like glowing cables. Occasional surges of energy ran along them, causing the passage to hum. A psychic tremor rippled outward. Mira staggered, gripping the wall. A Marine grabbed her shoulder. "You all right, Captain?" "Yes," she said, though the swirling images in her vision suggested otherwise. The hive was pushing hallucinations, memories twisted into grotesque shapes. She forced them away. "Stay focused," she told the team. "Ignore anything that isn't physical." They continued, emerging into a cavernous chamber. The ceiling arched high above, dripping with bioluminescent liquid. At the center, a massive organic column rose from floor to ceiling, its surface alive with electrical impulses. "The synaptic trunk," Leo whispered. Mira studied the readout. "We're close. But the node will be deeper." A passage at the far end pulsed open, almost inviting. "Through there," Mira said. They crossed the chamber, but halfway through, the floor heaved. A gigantic shape burst from beneath, a guardian organism, armored in thick plates, easily 3 times the size of a man. Its eyes were pits of dark crimson. "Engage!" Mira shouted. The guardian charged, slamming a Marine aside with brutal force. 2 others fired on its flank, rounds ricocheting off its armor. "Target joints!" Leo yelled. Mira dove under a swinging limb and fired at the creature's exposed underplate. The shot penetrated, making the beast lurch. Marines poured fire into the weak spot. The creature roared, releasing a psychic wave that hammered their minds like a mallet. Several soldiers dropped to a knee. Mira gritted her teeth, stepped forward, and fired a concentrated pulse near its throat. The beast convulsed, collapsing in a heap of writhing tissue. The floor settled. "Casualties?" Mira asked. 3 down, a medic said. 1 critical, but stable. "Secure them. The rest continue." They stepped over the fallen guardian and advanced into the pulsing corridor beyond. The passage narrowed until they reached a spherical chamber bathed in red light. At its center floated the synaptic node, an enormous pulsating core suspended by tendrils. It looked like a colossal heart fused with an alien brain, each contraction sending ripples across the hive. "This is it," Leo whispered. Mira approached, inspecting the tendrils. "The core's too dense for standard fire." "Then we use the nano-warheads," Leo said. Mira retrieved the charges, small metallic cylinders designed to dismantle biological structures at a microscopic level. "We plant them on the nerve clusters," she said. "They'll destabilize the entire network." A deafening shriek tore through the chamber. The walls bulged. The hive retaliated. Dozens of smaller creatures dropped from the ceiling, each one armed with barbed limbs. They charged as Mira and the team dispersed. Gunfire erupted. Mira slashed at a creature with her combat blade when it lunged too close. Leo detonated an explosive gel packet that sent 3 enemies flying. "Cover me!" Mira shouted as she sprinted toward the core. Marines tightened their formation, firing in controlled bursts. The chamber filled with smoke and luminescent blood. Mira reached the first tendril and attached a warhead. It sank into the tissue, lights turning green as it interfaced with the neural strands. 1 down. She darted to the next, but a creature leapt from the shadows, knocking her flat. Its claws scraped across her helmet, sending sparks across her visor. She grappled with it, rolled, and fired point-blank into its abdomen. It dissolved instantly. She rose and planted the second warhead, then the third. "Last one," she called. A sudden impact shook the chamber. The hive ship roared, tendrils whipping violently. Leo shouted, "The core's trying to purge us." "Hold position," Mira yelled. She raced to the final cluster. The floor swayed like a living wave. She nearly lost her footing but slammed the warhead against the nerve bundle. All 4 charges armed. She backed away. "Detonate." Leo pressed the trigger. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the node imploded in a burst of blinding white. Tendrils snapped. Shockwaves pulsed outward, shaking the entire hive. The psychic pressure vanished, leaving only silence. The hive ship began to collapse. "Extraction now," Mira ordered. They ran back through the corridor as sections of the ceiling tore loose. The walls convulsed, collapsing behind them. A boarding craft appeared at the breach point, engines whining as it repositioned. Mira shoved the last Marine aboard and leapt in. The ramp sealed as the craft blasted away from the dying hive. Behind them, the massive organism folded inward, its structure breaking apart. Flames and biological debris scattered into orbit. Outside, Terran and Council fleets seized the moment. Dormant enemy vessels, no longer guided by the node, drifted aimlessly. Council cruisers tore through them with precise volleys. On Arinder Prime, the shield grid stabilized. Panic gave way to astonishment. Mira watched the destruction unfold through the viewport. The hive, once an unstoppable dark mass, now collapsed like a dying starfish. She exhaled slowly. "It's done," Leo said. "For today," Mira replied. Back on the station, Chancellor Threx met Mira in the recovery bay. He looked older, humbled by the devastation he'd nearly allowed. "You saved us," he said quietly. Mira shook her head. "We saved each other. That's how survival works." Threx bowed his head. "Humanity has earned more than skepticism. You have earned leadership." She didn't respond. Her thoughts drifted to the final probe transmissions from the rim, signals of a far larger hive approaching. "We stopped one swarm," she said. "But the real threat is still coming." Threx swallowed. "What do we do?" Mira looked at the stars beyond the viewport, expression steady. "We prepare," she said. "And this time, when humanity warns you, listen." The stars flickered, as if acknowledging the promise of wars yet to come. The council chamber felt different now, no longer a hall of indifference but a war room forged by necessity. Gone were the ceremonial lights and sweeping starfield projections. In their place glowed tactical grids, troop movement charts, and real-time scans of the galactic rim. Captain Mira Solas entered, helmet tucked under one arm, still wearing the scuffed armor from the hive assault. Delegates turned as she passed. Days ago, she had been dismissed as an alarmist. Now they looked at her with something closer to reverence and fear. Chancellor Threx stood at the central platform, posture rigid, exhaustion seeping through the edges of his composure. "Captain Solas," he said, voice steadier than his hands, "your presence is required." "I gathered," Mira replied, stepping beside him. "What's our status?" Threx gestured toward the main display. A swirling mass hovered at the edge of the projected galaxy, an opaque fog of shifting signatures. It pulsed, then expanded with a subtle but unmistakable hunger. "That," Threx said, "arrived on long-range sensors an hour ago." Mira studied the image. Not a single entity this time. Not a lone tendril. A fleet. "How many signatures?" she asked, already bracing herself. Leo Wren, positioned near a console, answered. "We've counted at least 80 major hive structures. Possibly hundreds. They're moving in a staggered wave." Mira exhaled slowly. "They're preparing for total consumption. The swarm we destroyed was a scout." Silence rippled across the room. A delegate from the crystalline Varn spoke, voice brittle. If this fleet reaches the core worlds, we will not withstand it. Mira turned to face the assembly. Then we don't wait for them to reach the core worlds. We take the fight beyond council borders. The proposal triggered immediate murmurs, fear, disbelief, outrage. A Threxian senator raised a trembling limb. You speak of launching a preemptive strike on an extragalactic species that outnumbers us 100-fold? Yes, Mira said, unwavering. Because the alternative is watching them devour system after system until we're the last stars left. Wars aren't won by waiting. Threx cleared his throat, drawing attention. What would you propose, Captain? Be precise. Mira stepped forward, activating the hologram. It zoomed out, revealing the space between galaxies, a vast, dark expanse. She highlighted 3 strategic corridors through which the Vorkath were advancing. Here, and here, she said. Natural dark matter channels. They're using them like rivers. If we intercept them at these junctures, we cut their advance and force them into predictable formations. A delegate from the Now species asked, with what forces? Our fleets are scattered. Our stations need repair. We are not ready. That's why we prepare now, Mira said. We consolidate everything, ships, weapons, officers. A single united front. Threx studied her carefully. You want a coalition fleet under one command? Yes, Mira said. No disagreements. No politics. One chain of authority. And who, Threx asked, would lead such a fleet? Mira held his gaze, unblinking. I will. Gasps echoed across the chamber. A few delegates nodded, others recoiled. Threx didn't react immediately. Instead, he turned to Leo. Commander Wren, he said, you fought beside Captain Solas. You know her better than most. Is she the right choice? Leo didn't hesitate. She's the only choice. Mira appreciated the endorsement, though she didn't show it. She turned back to the hologram. We're facing an enemy that adjusts to everything we throw at it, Mira said. We can't rely on predictable strategies. Humanity can mobilize fast, experiment fast, adapt fast, and we share those strategies with all of you. A mechanical delegate from the Ashron Collective emitted a low hum. Your species thrives in chaos. We don't thrive in it, Mira said. We fight through it. Threx finally spoke. A vote, then. Council members, all in favor of forming a unified defense fleet under Captain Mira Solas. Lights blinked across the chamber, green pulses signifying approval. One by one, the lights accumulated until the majority was undeniable. Threx looked at Mira. The decision stands. For the first time since the Vorkath arrived, Mira felt a spark of hope. Not victory, just a foothold. Then we begin immediately, she said. I'll assemble the command staff. Hours later, Mira walked through the launch bay, now a hive of activity for once not trying to kill her. Engineers climbed across battered council ships, reinforcing hulls with Terran alloys. Pilots ran simulations. Infantry units practiced breach drills based on everything she learned inside the hive. Admiral Nakamura approached, his uniform immaculate despite the chaos. You're in charge of the whole fleet now, he said. Congratulations. Or condolences. I'll celebrate when the galaxy isn't on the menu, Mira replied. He chuckled. Fair enough. The Vanguard is ready. We've retrofitted the nanowarheads and improved their penetration efficiency by 30%. Good, Mira said. We'll need more than brute force. The hive learns. Nakamura nodded toward a transport unloading container-sized devices. Which is why I brought a gift. What am I looking at? Adaptive core disruptors, he said. Designed using data you pulled from the node. They mimic the hive's biopatterns to bypass its defenses. Mira raised an eyebrow. You developed those in 2 days? He gave her a dry look. You dropped a live synaptic cluster into our laps. I couldn't exactly ignore it. She allowed herself a brief smile. You're impossible. Which is why you love working with me, Nakamura said, then gestured toward the fleet. We're with you. Whatever comes. Later, Mira stood alone at the viewport, watching the stars drift slowly past. The fleet stretched out across space like a metallic storm, Terran destroyers, Threxian carriers, Varn crystalline barges, and dozens more, all preparing for the largest mobilization in Council history. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing against her ribs. She had chosen this. Now she had to deliver. Leo joined her quietly. You should rest, he said. I will, Mira answered, though she didn't move. Just thinking. About the hive? About everyone counting on us. He folded his arms. You led a team into the center of a living warship. You survived. You saved the Council. You can do this too. Mira looked at him. This isn't one ship. This is a swarm. And we're not alone anymore, he said. That changes everything. She nodded. Maybe he was right. Maybe the galaxy finally understood that survival required unity, not hesitation. A soft chime echoed through the view deck. A message flashed across the glass. Mira tapped the screen. A cluster of icons expanded, forming a terrifying mosaic of energy signatures. The swarm wasn't 80 hive ships. It was larger. Much larger. Leo leaned in, eyes widening. How many? Mira read the final line. Hundreds, she murmured. Possibly thousands. The air felt colder. Leo swallowed. What now? Mira stared into the distant dark, unflinching. Now, she said, we strike first.